The galaxy was always restless. Stars burned, worlds fell, and empires rose only to collapse into silence. For centuries, the Zelther Dominion had ruled without challenge. Their fleets were vast, their armies ruthless, and their leaders believed. No power could stand against them. They expanded like a storm, swallowing weaker civilizations one by one. Most races learned to kneel, and those who resisted were erased from memory. To the Dominion, fear was the only language worth speaking. When their eyes turned toward the small blue planet called Earth, few believed anything unusual would happen. Humanity was new to the stars. Their technology was still young compared to the ancient empires. They had no mighty fleets of living ships like the Zalari, no telepathic armies like the Kalrith, no endless swarm like the Skara. They were fragile, untested, and ignored by most of the galaxy. The Dominion attacked without warning. It began at the outer edge of human expansion, in a small colony orbiting a cold red star. The humans had built simple domes and factories, proud of their first steps beyond their homeworld. The Dominion's warships arrived in silence, and in less than a day, the colony was reduced to ashes. To the Dominion, it was a lesson, a warning to humans not to expand further. But something strange followed. The humans did not surrender. They did not beg for peace. They answered with defiance. Small patrol ships began to appear where Dominion forces expected nothing. Cargo haulers became weapons, ramming into larger cruisers. Fighters dove into impossible maneuvers, willing to burn in the atmosphere of strange worlds just to destroy enemy ships with them. Reports spread of human soldiers fighting long after they should have fallen, holding broken ground with nothing but grit and fury. The Dominion called it desperation. The galaxy called it madness. But humanity called it survival. One story spread quickly among the stars. A single human corvette named Silent Spear ambushed a Dominion supply convoy. The convoy had 5 warships escorting it, each larger and stronger than the human vessel. By all reason, the corvette should have been destroyed within minutes. Instead, the Silent Spear darted between the larger ships, striking fuel tanks and weak points the Dominion never imagined anyone would dare target. The small ship was torn apart, but not before 3 Dominion cruisers went down in flames. The story of that battle reached worlds far beyond, carried by whispers and recordings. Soon, aliens across the galaxy began to watch humanity with new eyes. They were not the strongest, they were not the oldest, but they were different. Every loss turned into resolve. Every death became a reason to fight harder. The Dominion grew frustrated. They sent larger fleets, greater armies, determined to crush this stubborn species, yet every victory felt hollow. For every colony destroyed, humans built 2 more. For every fleet lost, they returned with new strategies, unpredictable and reckless. No empire had ever fought like this. And then came the strangest moment of all. Humanity sent a message. Not a secret transmission, not a whisper of diplomacy. It was a broadcast so wide that no one in the galaxy could ignore it. From the heart of Earth to the farthest colonies, from the human fleets to the communication relays of other species. The message was carried everywhere. The galaxy expected threats. They expected boasts of war, declarations of vengeance, or calls for allies. Instead, the humans said something no one expected. The message was simple. Only a few words. But when those words reached alien ears, something began to stir. The great empires paused. The older races whispered. The Dominion, for the first time in centuries, felt uncertain. It was not a weapon that shook them. Not a fleet or an army. It was the meaning carried within that short message. The galaxy had witnessed countless wars, endless power struggles, and empires built on fear. But never before had they seen a species fight this way, and never before had they heard words like this spoken after so much destruction. As the message echoed across the stars, the galaxy realized a new truth. Humanity was not like the others. And whatever came next would change everything. The war had just begun. Asterisk. The message from Earth spread faster than fire in dry grass. At first, some believed it was a mistake, a simple transmission sent too far. But no, the signal was intentional. Every empire, every listening post, every scout ship that could hear the human voice carried it further. Even the smallest outposts on forgotten moons replayed the words. The humans had said only one thing. Thank you. That was all. Two simple words, but no one could agree on their meaning. Why would a species under siege and outnumbered thank the very empire destroying them? Why would a people fighting for survival send gratitude into the stars? In the Dominion Council, the admirals argued for days. Some claimed it was a trick, a hidden code, perhaps even a weapon disguised as language. Others believed it was a human weakness, a surrender painted in strange words. But one Dominion elder, older than all the others, sat in silence. His claws tapped against the table as he whispered, "They are mocking us. They bleed, they suffer, but they still dare to speak without fear. That is what makes them dangerous." Across the galaxy, other empires watched closely. The Vrol Confederacy, reptilian hunters who respected strength above all, studied the message again and again. To them, the words were not weakness but defiance. The humans were saying thank you for waking us up. Thank you for showing us what we must become. The Vrol began to whisper, perhaps humanity was not prey, but predator. The Zalari, masters of telepathy, felt unease ripple through their kind. They searched the message with their minds, hoping to sense hidden intent. Yet when they reached into the human broadcast, they found only a strange stillness, like staring into the eye of a storm. "They believe what they say," one Zalari elder murmured. "And belief can be more dangerous than armies." On scattered colonies, the smaller races who had lived under Dominion fear for centuries felt something new. Hope. If a young, fragile species could fight back and still send words of gratitude instead of fear, maybe the galaxy was not as fixed as it seemed. Secret rebellions began to whisper the human words. "Thank you." It became a phrase of quiet resistance, painted on walls, spoken in shadows, but for the Dominion, the message was an insult that could not be ignored. Their leader, High Sovereign Koresh, declared before the galaxy, "These humans do not understand fear. Then we will teach them fear greater than any they have ever known." And so, the Dominion gathered the largest fleet it had ever sent to a single system. Hundreds of warships, carriers, and siege platforms. Their target, Earth itself, the galaxy held its breath. No one had ever stood against such a fleet. No world had ever resisted the Dominion once its full strength arrived. The outcome seemed certain. Yet even as the Armada moved through space, reports came of human ships striking again and again. Small raiders appeared in unexpected places, destroying supply depots, vanishing into asteroid fields, and even stealing Dominion data from inside their own outposts. Each attack was small. Each loss was minor. But together, they built a picture that made Dominion leaders restless. The humans were not fighting like prey. They were preparing something. On Earth, silence filled the halls of command. The leaders knew the Dominion fleet was coming. They knew the sky would soon burn with more fire than the planet had ever seen. And still, the humans planned. Still, they worked. Still, they repeated the same message to their people and their allies. We will not stop when the first Dominion scout ships entered the solar system. They expected fear. They expected panic. Instead, they found humans waiting. Fleets that should have been broken were gathered again. Stations that should have fallen were rebuilt. And through every communication channel, the words were whispered once more. Thank you. The war was no longer just about planets and ships. It was about meaning. The humans had turned two simple words into a weapon sharper than steel. The galaxy realized this truth as Earth prepared for the storm that was about to fall upon it. The Dominion fleet entered the solar system like a wall of fire. Hundreds of warships appeared in formation, their hulls shining with crimson lights, their weapons glowing like burning suns. The void trembled with their arrival. To most of the galaxy, it was the end of Earth. To the Dominion, it was only another conquest. But humanity had been waiting. From the surface of Earth to the frozen moons of Jupiter, every station and every ship prepared for war. Civilian freighters had been turned into carriers. Mining ships had been fitted with cannons. Old satellites were reprogrammed to track enemy movements. Even the smallest outposts had a role. Humans had taken what little they had and turned it into something the Dominion could not predict. The first clash came near the orbit of Mars. Dominion scouts moved ahead, expecting to find only weak defenses. Instead, they found a swarm. Human fighters, hundreds of them, rose from hidden bases carved into the rocks of Mars. They struck like a storm of insects, reckless and fearless, diving into the enemy with no thought of retreat. Dominion ships fired back, burning dozens at once. But the humans kept coming. One Dominion captain reported in disbelief, "They are not retreating. They are not regrouping. They are dying, but they do not care. They only fight." The scouts were destroyed. But the Dominion pressed on. They believed the humans were wasting themselves too quickly. The great fleet moved closer to Earth, confident the final strike would be simple. Then the ambushes began. From the asteroid belt came a rain of fire. Hidden cannons, disguised as rocks, opened fire on the Dominion warships. Cargo ships exploded from within, carrying stolen fuel that turned into massive blasts. Even broken ships, drifting hulks from past battles, suddenly came alive, their cores rigged to detonate at the perfect moment. The Dominion had never seen war like this. Every mile forward became a trap. Every victory tasted like loss. And still, the humans sent their message. Across the Dominion fleet's channels, the words repeated, "Thank you." The soldiers of the Dominion grew uneasy. Some whispered that the humans were insane. Others began to fear the meaning of those words. Were the humans thanking the Dominion for the fight itself? For the suffering? For forcing them to rise stronger? No one knew. But the fear grew. As the fleet reached Earth's orbit, they prepared their greatest weapons. Siege platforms were aligned, their cannons glowing brighter than the sun. On the planet below, billions of humans watched the sky. Sirens screamed, bunkers filled, and soldiers stood ready. Everyone knew what was coming. Then something no one expected happened. The human fleet did not meet the Dominion head-on. They scattered, weaving through the larger ships, striking only at key points. Small corvettes darted under shields. Bombers struck engines, not weapons. Fighters sacrificed themselves to create openings for others. The humans did not fight for survival alone. They fought to send a message, "We will never bow." One human ship, the Aurora's Light, became a legend in that battle. Surrounded by 5 Dominion cruisers, the crew chose not to flee. They turned their ship toward the enemy flagship and accelerated at full speed. The Dominion laughed, believing the humans were desperate fools. But the Aurora's Light carried something hidden. A prototype weapon, unstable and untested. The ship rammed the flagship and exploded with a force that shook the entire battlefield. The blast destroyed the flagship and crippled 2 other warships. The rest of the Dominion fleet fell into chaos. For the first time in centuries, a Dominion armada hesitated. From Earth, the human message was broadcast again, this time with a voice filled with calm. "Thank you for showing us who we are." The galaxy trembled. Allies and enemies alike repeated the words in shock. Humanity had taken what should have been their doom and turned it into a story that would never be forgotten. The Dominion still had more ships, more weapons, more power. But something deeper had already begun to change. Fear was no longer theirs to give. The humans had taken it and turned it into something new. The war for Earth was not over. But the galaxy now knew one truth. This was not the end of humanity. It was the beginning. The battle over Earth burned for days. Skies glowed with falling fire, and oceans reflected the wreckage of ships as they broke apart in orbit. Humanity bled, but it did not break. Every hour the Dominion expected surrender, and every hour the humans answered with defiance. But war is not only fought with weapons. War is also fought with meaning. Across the galaxy, alien empires watched. The humans had done the impossible, standing against the largest Dominion fleet ever assembled. Even as their ships were torn apart, even as their cities suffered, the humans did not send pleas for mercy. Instead, they kept repeating those same words, "Thank you." On distant worlds, rebels painted the words on their walls. Soldiers whispered them in secret camps. Even Dominion slaves began to murmur them in the shadows. Two simple words had become more dangerous than entire armies. The High Sovereign of the Dominion, Koresh, grew furious. His voice echoed through his war council as he roared. They twist weakness into strength. They bleed, yet they call it victory. If we cannot silence them, then fear itself will die in this galaxy. The Dominion prepared to unleash a weapon they had long hidden, a super dreadnought called the Hammer of Dawn. Larger than any ship the humans had ever seen, it carried a planet-killer cannon capable of burning entire worlds to ash. Its arrival would crush Earth beyond hope. But humanity was not blind. Their intelligence networks, built on stolen codes and captured Dominion officers, learned of the weapon. And for the first time, they asked their allies for help. The galaxy was stunned. Humanity had fought alone for so long that many believed they would never reach out. But now they sent a message not only of defiance, but of unity. Stand with us, and the galaxy will never kneel again. The Vrol Confederacy, hunters who once dismissed humans as prey, answered first. We have seen your fight. You are not prey. You are kin. They sent warships, sleek and deadly, to join the human fleet. The Zalari, cautious but wise, sent their telepaths to shield human minds from Dominion fear tactics. Your belief is stronger than ours, they admitted. But together, it will be unbreakable. Even the smallest races, long silenced under Dominion rule, sent what little they could: cargo ships filled with supplies, fighters old and fragile but flown with courage, even warriors armed only with rifles. They came because the humans had lit a fire they thought impossible. When the Hammer of Dawn entered the system, the galaxy stood still. The Dominion expected fear. Instead, they found resistance like never before. Human fleets, now joined by alien allies, swarmed around the massive ship. They could not match its size, but they struck at its escorts, tearing them away piece by piece. On board the human flagship Resolute, Captain Mira Hayes gave the order that would define history. Her voice was calm, steady, and filled with resolve. We cannot run from this. We strike now. We strike together. The battle became chaos. Vrol hunters dove into the Dominion lines, their ships slicing like knives. Zalari telepaths sent waves of calm through human soldiers, steadying their hands even as the sky burned. Small resistance ships darted in and out, harassing the great dreadnought with hit-and-run attacks. Still, the Hammer of Dawn pressed forward. Its massive cannon charged, light gathering into a beam to tear Earth apart. Humanity had only minutes. That was when the humans revealed their final plan. A fleet of seemingly broken ships, hidden near the moon, came alive. They were not broken. They were traps, filled with explosives and guided by remote pilots ready to sacrifice everything. One by one, they hurled themselves at the dreadnought, slamming into its armor, breaking its shields, and shaking its hull. The cannon continued to charge. The Dominion commander laughed, certain nothing could stop the weapon. But then the Resolute itself made its move. With engines burning hotter than ever before, the flagship charged straight at the super dreadnought. Every human ship nearby cleared a path, sacrificing themselves to keep the Resolute alive. The galaxy watched in silence as the human flagship rammed into the dreadnought's core. A single spark, a chain of detonations, and then a blinding explosion that lit the system brighter than the sun. When the fire cleared, the hammer of dawn was gone. So was the Resolute. The Dominion had lost its greatest weapon. Humanity had lost its bravest ship. But the meaning was undeniable. The galaxy now knew the humans could not be broken. And in the silence that followed, the message spread again across every surviving channel, in every voice from human and alien alike. Thank you. The destruction of the Hammer of Dawn was more than just a battle won. It was a wound the Dominion had never suffered before. For centuries, they had crushed their enemies without pause, their fleets unmatched, their power unquestioned. Now, for the first time, they had been stopped, and not by another empire, but by the youngest species in the stars. Across the galaxy, whispers became shouts. On enslaved worlds, the words, "Thank you," spread like fire. Rebellions that had once been hidden now marched openly. Prison camps turned into war camps. Small fleets, once terrified to rise, painted the human words on their hulls before charging into Dominion patrols. The High Sovereign Koresh could not accept this. His rage shook the Dominion Council. "We will not lose to these weak creatures," he thundered. "We will drown them in fire until nothing remains." But cracks were already forming inside his empire. Dominion soldiers had seen what humanity could do. They had watched humans fight without fear, fight even when defeat seemed certain. And now, even Dominion troops began to doubt. Quietly, in their barracks and on their ships, they whispered, "If humans can stand, why do we still kneel?" The Dominion responded with brutality. Entire cities were burned to silence rebels. Fleets were recalled to crush uprisings. But this only weakened them further. Every ship pulled away from Earth was one less ship holding the empire together. Meanwhile, humanity rebuilt faster than anyone expected. Though they had lost ships, though cities bore scars of war, their spirit only grew. The sacrifice of the Resolute became a story told across every colony. Children whispered Captain Myra Hayes' name like a legend. Soldiers painted her ship's emblem on their armor before heading into battle. And still, the message continued. Every human broadcast, every transmission carried the words, "Thank you." Aliens tried to understand. Thank you for what? Thank you for war? For suffering? For loss? But humanity knew the truth. They were thanking the Dominion for proving their strength, for forcing them to rise, for reminding them what it meant to fight not only for survival, but for meaning. Soon, entire fleets of aliens joined the human cause. The Vrol sent their strongest hunters, eager to fight beside those they now called brothers. The Zalari offered not just their telepaths but their vast archives of knowledge. Even the weakest races who had nothing but old ships and courage came forward. Humanity accepted them all, not as servants, but as equals. It was something the galaxy had never seen before, an alliance built not on fear or control, but on choice. When word of this alliance reached the Dominion, Koresh laughed. "They gather insects and call it strength. We will crush them all at once." He ordered his remaining fleets to converge on the border of human space. It was to be the final war, a battle that would end the question forever. But the Dominion did not understand. They were used to fighting isolated enemies, each alone and afraid. Now they faced something new, unity. The first great clash came near the star system of Thalrus. Dominion fleets entered expecting an easy kill. Instead, they found humans and aliens fighting side by side. Vrol warships struck like blades, cutting holes in Dominion lines. Zalari telepaths shielded human pilots from fear, letting them fly with calm even as their ships burned. Small rebel vessels darted through the chaos, delivering precise strikes. That shattered the Dominion's coordination. For the first time, the Dominion lost not just a battle, but entire fleets. Thousands of ships were gone. And worse, their enemies did not scatter afterward. They stayed, they built, they grew stronger. Koresh tried to keep control, but his empire was collapsing. News came of uprisings on core worlds, of governors refusing. Orders, of slaves turning their chains into weapons. The words, "Thank you," were everywhere, painted on walls, shouted in streets, echoing through the stars. The High Sovereign realized the truth too late. Humanity had done something no other species had ever managed. They had turned fear into a weapon against those who had once used it to rule. But the war was not yet over. The Dominion still held thousands of ships. They still commanded armies that could burn worlds. And Koresh himself swore he would never bow. So the galaxy waited for the final strike, the battle that would decide everything. And as humanity prepared, their leaders gathered and spoke the words once more, not with fear, not with surrender, but with unshakable resolve. Thank you. Asterisk, the galaxy had never seen such a gathering of fleets. Human ships, patched and rebuilt 100 times, stood in formation beside the sleek hunters of the Vrol, the graceful vessels of the Zalari, and countless smaller craft from races once too weak to fight. For the first time in history, enemies and strangers fought as one. Across from them waited the Dominion. Their warships still numbered in the thousands, their dreadnoughts still powerful, their armies still vast. But something had changed. The silence in their ranks was heavy, not proud. They were no longer feared as gods of war. They were seen as what they truly were, an empire of cruelty standing on broken ground. At the center of it all stood High Sovereign Koresh, his flagship towering above the rest. His voice thundered across every channel, trying to drown the rising tide of hope. You are children playing at war. You unite today, but tomorrow you will betray one another. Only the Dominion endures. We are eternal. But when the humans answered, their reply was simple: thank you. The words echoed across the battlefield, carried on every allied frequency. Dominion soldiers heard them in their helmets. Admirals heard them on their bridges. Koresh himself heard them in his throne chamber. And in that moment, even his loyal captains felt doubt. The battle began like a storm. Dominion fleets surged forward, firing in endless waves. The sky turned into fire. Worlds shook from the force of their cannons. But the alliance did not break. Humans fought in swarms, striking where the enemy least expected. Vrol hunters tore through Dominion lines, leaving trails of wreckage. Zalari telepaths linked pilots together, letting them fly as if with one mind. For every ship that fell, another took its place. For every soldier lost, 1,000 more shouted the words of defiance. Thank you. Hours turned into days. The battle raged across the system. The Dominion threw everything they had, but no matter how many ships they destroyed, the alliance held. Slowly, the great wall of the Dominion began to crumble. On the final day, the human flagship Endeavor broke through the Dominion's last line. Its guns were nearly empty, its shields shattered, but it pressed forward. At its side flew Vrol hunters and Zalari guardians, clearing the way. The Endeavor aimed straight for Koresh's flagship. The High Sovereign's ship unleashed its fury, tearing apart allies, burning holes through human decks. But still the Endeavor came. On board, Admiral Ren Carter spoke calmly into the comms. This ends today. For every life they took, for every world they broke, today we answer. The Endeavor struck with its final weapon, a barrage of torpedoes guided by pilots who never turned back. The Dominion flagship shook, shields failing, engines exploding. Koresh roared in rage, refusing to accept defeat, but even his voice could not stop the fire consuming his throne. When the flames cleared, the Dominion flagship was gone. High Sovereign Koresh was no more. Silence filled the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, the Dominion had fallen. On Earth, in the Vrol homeworld, in Zalari's sanctums, and on 1,000 liberated planets, the words rose together. Soldiers shouted them on broken battlefields. Civilians whispered them under rebuilt skies. The entire galaxy, united for the first time, spoke the human message. Thank you. It was not just gratitude anymore. It was victory. It was freedom. It was the truth that could never again be erased. Humanity had shown that even the smallest voice could shake the stars, that even the youngest species could humble an empire. And so, in the aftermath of war, the humans sent one final broadcast. Their leader stood before the galaxy, calm and steady. Behind them stood representatives of every allied race, once divided but now together. Today, the human voice said, "We do not speak of conquest. We do not speak of revenge. We speak of gratitude. Thank you to those who stood with us. Thank you to those who believed. And even to our enemies, thank you for showing us what it means to never give up." The galaxy listened in silence. Many wept, many trembled. None ever forgot. From that day on, the Dominion was only a memory. But the message remained, carved into the history of the stars. The message from Earth that shook the entire galaxy. Thank you.